confess that we certainly intended to have a representative from the Chief Executive Office present some information about the budget. We were advised, however, that there is a budget hearing tomorrow at 9:30 that should be visible to people on their website. And so the CEO's office, because they indicated that there are some late breaking developments associated with the budget, that they didn't feel comfortable sharing the information that they had originally prepared for this evening, pending being able to share it first with their bosses, the Board of Supervisors, which makes a measure of sense. However, you should all know that as governments go, their process is relatively accessible. I'm not going to say transparent, but accessible to members of the public if you want to find out what's going on. And so I have put in the chat two links under the heading about the Los Angeles County budget. The budget recommendations is the first link, and the budget process is the second link. Courtney, if you could pull up the budget recommendations, then I'd like to highlight at least a couple of slides that are particularly relevant to our discussion this evening and to the meeting tomorrow. Courtney, are you there?
Yes, it's just taking a second to load.
Okay, great. All right, so this is an 11 slide presentation that provides a very general overview about what is entailed in the 2025 recommended budget from the CEO's office as of the time of publication, which was about, I think, around April the 15th or 16th. So this is a bit dated. There is new information that is becoming available all the time, including the incorporation of actions that are related to the deliberations that are currently going on in Congress. The other piece that is relevant is the governor's May revision, which, while it has not yet been issued for this fiscal year, is imminent. Will probably be released in the next 10 days or so. Both of these, both the federal and the state budgets have a significant impact on the county budget. As many of you know, the federal government provides through the state to the county at least 50% of the I should say almost 100% of the Medicaid budget that goes to residents of the county who are eligible. And from an earlier presentation, you should know that there are a significant number of Angelenos who are on Medicaid. So the $80 billion cut that is currently being proposed at the federal level this year in Medicaid will have a substantial impact on the state of California if you assume that 15% of that Medicaid budget at the federal level comes to the state of California. Next slide. Or am I in control? I guess I'm in control. So this budget overview identifies how much is being requested by county departments, as well as other obligations, and how much is left in unmet needs remaining. So there's $1.3 billion less available than last year's final budget. The total budget is $47.9 billion. I want to say something about that number, $47.9 billion, because it sounds like, well, $47 billion. It's 47, it's not that much. It really means 47,000 million. So let me repeat that. A $47 billion budget is 47,000 million. And to more fully appreciate just how much money that is, think about it in terms of your own net worth. How much are you worth? Are you still, like most of us, working on your first $1 million? So imagine if you had 47,000 of them. So this slide talks a little bit about the diminishing available resources that the county has, and it takes a look at home sales and the impact that interest rates have had on the declines in home sales and the revenue issues that are associated with it. Why is that significant? Because it's not until homes are sold under Proposition 13 that they are reassessed to their current close to market value. So if you don't have a lot of homes being sold, you don't have reassessments, and those reassessments have an impact on the available money to the county. This slide describes the process that the county undertakes for the budget, and you see some of the significant issues that have been identified, two of which, actually three of which, we can really highlight all of them. The global economic uncertainty. Why is that significant? Think about Trump's tariff policy in the context of the jobs that are generated by the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. If they're anticipating a 30 to 40% reduction in trade traffic coming through the ports, that means jobs. Jobs in terms of unloading the ships and transporting the containers, either by way of truck or by rail. Jobs when it comes to the retail aspects of the distribution of the products that are there, that are coming in, and then the uncertainty that is created by not knowing what to anticipate and the reluctance of people to make investments or to pursue plans for expansion. Combine that with the federal and state budget concerns and cuts, and you have a significant issue that gets compounded by the demands for resources related to fire recovery, as well as the need for labor negotiations to accommodate the demands by the county's labor unions for appropriate cost of living adjustments to address what is an increasingly expensive environment in which to live. And finally, that AB 218 settlement, this is the magnitude of the settlement that is at risk. These are settlements. This is a settlement that's related, I believe, to abuse in the abuses that occurred over decades in the juvenile detention facilities of the county. $4 billion to cover 6,800 claims. and you see how long it will take for them to pay it, because the way they are financing it is to issue what are called judgment obligation bonds. So they have to borrow money in order to pay out the claims. And the cost will be the length of time it takes to uh, pay for the term of the loan. So these are the budget challenges that have been identified associated with AB 218, and some of the direction that's been given to departments in terms of trying to reduce their uh, uh, expenses. So they are curtailing, that is, reducing the amount the departments are spending, and they're trying to do so without uh, uh, any layoffs and by minimizing any service delivery impacts. Some might say that a 3% curtailment means that's how much fat there is in LA County government. They, of course, would be only partially correct. No one in government knows or will dispute that things could not be done more efficiently, or that there is waste. Uh, there's a question about what is the degree of that inefficiency and that waste. With regard to the process, as many of you know, there will be open hearings, the first of which is tomorrow, where the CEO will update the board on where things are. They will continue to keep a close eye on what's happening with revenues. Some of those state revenue concerns you might appreciate are related to the fact that people who are affected by the fires in LA County have been given until October of this year or even later to file their 2024 tax forms. Uh, in this slide, the county has determined what the priorities are for both the for the safety net as well as issues associated with public safety. This slide identifies the areas where they will continue to do work. Please note that the county has allocated approximately $12 million for Measure G reforms. That is a matter that is of particular interest to those of us on the Government Reform and Working Group uh, of the Empowerment Congress. And we want to ensure that that $12 million or so is expended uh, in ways that are uh, appropriate to our priorities for accountability and transparency, and uh, in efforts to really advance a good governance model within the framework of Measure G. The other matter that is of significant interest to us is the $1.1 billion that is anticipated in Measure A, homeless funding. That issue is significant in part because of the county's decision to withdraw from the Joint Powers Agency known as LAHSA. And for those of you that are interested in uh, knowing more about that, um, please drop your names in the chat so that we can ensure that the Empowerment Congress newsletter called Praxis, which is a survey of articles and reports about homelessness in Los Angeles County can receive that weekly email newsletter. The other priorities are identified in the chart. I won't bother to highlight them. You can see them for yourself. And so finally, here are some key dates. Um, and Eddie and Courtney, if you are still on, it might be useful for us to make sure that our meetings do not conflict with these dates in ways that would cause us to lose attendance, but at the same time provide us with opportunities to weigh in into the process. So in classic county form, they provide an opportunity to ask questions. So maybe we can take this PowerPoint down for the moment and spend the next 5 minutes or so with any questions that people may have. Or am I in control? Am I in control?
I think you weren't looking at the Zoom screen, so there's nothing shared anymore.
Okay. Okay, cool. Anybody have any questions?
Just a couple of comments, Vincent. Excellent job. Thank you for the presentation. Let me just add a few contextual points that I think would be useful to those who are on the call. The first of which is just to remind those who know it and to inform those who don't that this county is the largest county in the United States of America. And it's just worth knowing that from the perspective of seeing how it fits into um, uh, the conversation pertaining to reform, conversation as it relates to budget, the conversation as it relates to governance. The second point I want to make quickly, and undergirding some of the points that Vincent made, contextual only. This is, you think of the budget, nearly $48 billion, coupled with the size of this county, uh, north of 10 million people. It then positions itself as in the top 10 entities. If it were a state, it would be in the top 10 states in the United States of America. Again, it gives you perspective as to what we are talking about and dealing with. The additional point that I wanted to share is when we think about its budgeting and the like, it is generally agreed the county of Los Angeles, when compared to the state of California and the city of Los Angeles, as two points of comparison, is the most fiscally solvent. I hasten to add that that has to do with its bond ratings, which are revisited on an annual basis. They have to go to Wall Street and make presentation to the bonding, that is the rating agencies, um, to make sure that county isn't running red. Of course, the city has to do that, the state has to do it. The county tends to be in good stead with respect to its A plus ratings, and it sometimes fluctuates. Regrettably, the city was downgraded most recently, which then means that they have to pay more money in terms of financing outstanding debt. And so I offer all those things just to kind of put the county in perspective. It's probably known that the state of California, the largest state in the United States of America, in terms of its homeless population and a range of other things, happens to be the fourth largest economy in the entire world. This one state, just behind Germany, above India. Then, when you think of the county which is the largest governing entity within the state, it fluctuates, but somewhere between 17 and 19 on average, largest economies in the world. And I offer all these data points just to have us all have a full level of appreciation for the massive nature of this entity. There's an association for county government called CSAC. When I was first elected to the Board of Supervisors in 2008, I went to the first CSAC meeting. And Benjamin, you may recall, they said, "Why are you here?" And well, it's part of one of the assignments I have that we need to be a part of the Association of County Governments. Why? You have nothing in common with us. Really? We're a county. You have 5 members of the board, and we have 5 members of the board. There are 58 counties in the state of California. They're all subdivisions of the state, the counties are, and therefore LA is one such entity. Yes, we know that. But you have 10 million people. Some of us only have 10,000 people. Just putting it in context in terms of what this county represents. And the final point that I'll make, and then I'll resume to taking my nap, is this. In terms of government reform, I want us to appreciate that the chief executive officer of the county will soon become an elected position, 2028 to be specific, right? There'll be that election. And so this individual will sit atop of all of what I just described. And at this point in time, there is no term limits on that position, much like is the case for the members of the Board of Supervisors. And this is really, really important. As we talk about reform, as we talk about governance, the chief executive officer will not effectively report to the Board of Supervisors, as is currently the case. The board hires and fires the CEO. That will be no more. It will be the people of the state of California, of the county of Los Angeles, to whom this individual, whoever he or she may be, and I guess I'll close on this point. I suspect this position will be no question about it. Members of the Board of Supervisors are the most powerful local elected officials anywhere in the country. But this chief executive officer, then to be elected, will be the most powerful local elected official anywhere in the country, bar none. And arguably the second most powerful individual in the state of California, and will not have the same kind of restrictions and the like that the governor has. In other words, this person won't have to arm wrestle with a Senate of 40 people, of 80 people, and a assembly of 120 people. Senate's 40 or 80, Vincent, I'm losing track.
40.
It's in my distant memory now. Um,
It's 40.
yeah, so 40 in the Senate, governor
80
has to do it.
assembly.
80 and 80 in the assembly,
Yes,
120 combined.
correct.
Thank you. Vincent serves an indispensable purpose. So the point that I wish to make is no arm wrestling with all of that. He or she will have 9 individuals with whom to contend max. All right, I've said much more than I intended, and I will relinquish the floor at that before I get this math even further botched. Thank you so
Well,
much
We
for your
appreciate
time and attention.
we appreciate that context.
Yeah, yeah.
The state of California would be just I think ahead of the state of Michigan
Mhm.
population.
Yeah, number 9.
Rochelle, you have a question?
Good evening. I just wanted to speak on this the PowerPoint slide that you presented, Mr. Harris.
Yes.
And the last slide had talked about the budget and all of the things that it was going to fund. All of those things look nice, that it's going to fund or continue to fund. However, the Black community, we are jobless, homeless, and we dying right now. So I just want to, I'm here because I love my people and I love our community. And personally, I'm not in support with Measure G, but it's so many people here, it's inevitable. We have to do it. So I'm here to see how can I help out and make sure that my community, which is they breaking it up, the second district, Holly Mitchell's district is, predominantly Black. They're going to break it up, so it's going to dilute our voice for sure. So I'm here to see how can we ensure that all those things on that PowerPoint slide that the Black community is going to get. So that's why I'm here.
I appreciate that, Rochelle. I would make 2 observations. First is that one of the things that former Supervisor Ridley Thomas did prior to his departure from the Board of Supervisors was to author a motion that requires, as a matter of policy, and correct me if I'm wrong, the CEO's office to measure the impact of county policies on the African American community and population. It goes by the acronym of ARDI. I don't recall exactly
Artie.
what that stands for. But at the end of each fiscal year, and we're nearing the end of the fiscal year now, the county is to issue a report that looks at the impact of its policies on the African American community to determine disparate impacts and to measure efforts to address equity as a matter of policy. So that's one way. And then the second way, of course, is for us to get in there, have these types of presentations where questions such as the one you asked can get posed to our elected officials and to the public officials that are accountable to them.
Can I say something about ARDI, or anti-racism, diversity, and inclusion? It is chaired by Dr. D'Artagnan Scorza in the CEO's office. That is where, if you're looking, Rochelle, for the Black People Experiencing Homelessness Committee, if you're looking for why there's $900,000 for doulas, it's because it's one of the North Stars, knowing that Black women are 4 times more likely to die in childbirth in Los Angeles, and the county usually pays for that. That's the department that is holding that, but I wanted to connect that to what Supervisor Margaret Thomas has said. That's all in the CEO's office. So when you are talking about government reform, part of what you can say in those listening sessions is, how are you going to protect the ARDI office? Because the ARDI office is the only office that has a mandate to make sure that equity is carried out at all 40 departments of the county. And so that's one way you can advocate for that, is to make sure that that department is not touched or held intact, regardless of who the CEO is, and that they actually have some power to implement what needs to be done.
Thank you, Pastor
Now,
Eddie.
this becomes critically important because that office, I did say that office is going to be headed by an elected official. He or she is going to be accountable to the people. So I wish to make the point that office will necessarily be politicized. Are you following me? It will be politicized. So
Yes. So we'll have to
whoever-
run for that seat.
yeah, whoever runs and puts it together wins, presumably. But once decisions are made, the voting blocks will significantly determine what priorities and the like move forward, by virtue of a lot of the marbles being in the hands of the chief executive office, the elected chief executive office. And so he or she will be looking at where his or her votes came from. That's not the way it's done now. Everybody on the board, 5 members, has an equal say in governing the priorities and how the chief executive office moves. That will change in terms of who that chief executive office is accountable to. The additional point, Pastor Eddie and Mr. Harris, a part of the motion that was drafted in 2020, and all this was in the wake of the George Floyd murder, was to make sure the department heads had an evaluative component based on what kind of equity and inclusion, call it diversity, in the context of an anti-racist sensibility. So that's supposed to be a part of their MAP evaluation, their annual reviews. All of that's supposed to be in place as well. Now, the prevailing ethos, this anti-DEI dynamic, will have far-reaching implications for how you stand up ARDI. I mean, so there's a lot at stake here, I believe, and we need to be on the case, thinking this through, doing the appropriate analysis, and the like, to make our convictions, our claims, our rights known.
All right. Thank you, sir. Are there any Is there one final question before we move to our next speaker? Okay. At this time, I've taken the liberty of inviting a representative of the Northridge Indivisible organization, Dusky Wanamaker and her colleague Kayla Owens have been invited to present to us for the purpose of describing the work that they are doing, particularly around defense of Social Security and senior citizens. Dusky came to the Empowerment Congress's annual summit in January. She attended the first meeting of the Government Reform and Accountability Work Group, dropped her contact information in the chat, and invited the leadership of the Empowerment Congress to engage her and Northridge Indivisible. And as a result of those continuing conversations, she has advanced some pretty, I think, interesting work that spins off of ideas generated by the Empowerment Congress and other stuff. So with that, by way of an introduction, I've placed into the chat a description of Northridge Indivisible and a couple of links to YouTube videos that feature Dusky and the work of the Raising Cane's effort that has begun to go national. So, Courtney, if you could put Dusky on the screen.
Hi all. Well, what I was going to do is let Kayla talk first about Indivisible, Northridge Indivisible, and our link to National Indivisible and the work that we've been doing. And then I'll wrap it up with what Raising Cane's has been doing as outreach part of Northridge Indivisible. So Kayla Owens.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight. Again, my name is Kayla, and I'm on the leadership team with Northridge Indivisible. This has been so informative. I'm so glad I was here tonight to see the presentation on the budget and hear from everyone. So my day job is a trade attorney. So I am knee deep in this tariff war right now, and everything you said earlier about the impacts is so true. And I don't know that the greater public really understands what's coming down the pipeline. And even if you were to reverse these tariffs tomorrow, it's still going to have a lasting impact for several months, if not more. I'm also a graduate of the Cal State Dominguez Hills Negotiation, Conflict Resolution, and Peace Building Program, which is how I got involved with Days of Dialogue. And Northridge Indivisible co-hosted the Facing Racism and Bigotry in Los Angeles dialogue series here in the San Fernando Valley. We co-hosted with the NAACP of San Fernando Valley and other organizations here. So it's through Days of Dialogue that we learned about the Empowerment Congress, and Dusky and I attended this year's summit and agreed that we'd love to find ways to collaborate and support in any way we can. So I know that Vincent dropped information about us in the chat, but basically we're a new organization. We started shortly after Trump was elected the first time, and we've been engaged with grassroots progressive grassroots activism since then. And we basically have four main focus areas. One is legislative and electoral work. So we meet with our local and state and federal electeds, either as an individual organization or as part of a broader coalition to discuss specific legislation or issues that are of concern to us. We are also a member of the Indivisible California State Strong Coalition, which is made up of about 80 indivisible states throughout the state of California. And so each legislative session, we nominate and vote on priority bills that we are going to focus on as a coalition during that session. And we have 5 working groups. So kind of similar to the way you have your working groups. Our working groups are democracy reform, racial and criminal justice, climate justice, healthcare and reproductive rights, and economic justice. I sit on the racial and criminal justice working group. And so, right now we have 5 bills that we are advocating for and working with co-sponsors of the legislation to advocate and lobby in support of the bill. For example, one of our bills is AB 321, the BID Act, which would allow judges more time to classify a wobbler case, which is a case that could be charged as either a misdemeanor or a felony. So right now, the judge has to make that determination either at or before the preliminary hearing, before all the evidence is available and more is known about the defendant. This bill would allow a judge more time to exercise that discretion. So we'll be working with the San Francisco Public Defender's Office and Californians for Safety and Justice and advocating for that bill. And then finally, as part of our legislative and electoral work, we canvass and phone bank for our local, state, and federal candidates. Although going forward, we are really thinking about focusing more of our effort on issues versus candidates, especially in between election cycles. So, just in listening to you speak tonight, I think that already, advocating to hold that intact is an area that I'd like to see us as a group support. That any efforts in that seems like a good place where we could collaborate and that we could support that effort. And then the second area of focus is our civic engagement work. So we have tables at local events where we will register people to vote. We share resources about how people can get more involved at their various levels of comfort. Not everyone's ready to, take to the streets. Some people are more comfortable with phone banking. So we're just trying to meet people where they are and just have them get involved. So we provide information about how to find out who your state elected is. And if you call them, what do you say? So right now we're tabling at the Farmers Market in Granada Hills on Friday nights. As I mentioned, we've had, we co-hosted Days of Dialogue events here in the Valley. We also, one of the things I'm excited about is we're really trying to reach out to younger people. And so one of our members is a teacher and she has her government students. They're going to be at a youth event here in the Valley at the end of May. And they're going to have a table that will say, ask an expert. And so they'll have questions like, what is a tariff? Or why should I vote? Why is it important? How can I contact my elected representative and what should I say? What is due process? And so each question, 2 students will be assigned to each of those questions. And their assignment is to be able to answer those questions as an expert. So it's really having young people being able to talk to other young people about these issues. And hopefully we'll be able to kind of, if it's successful, which I'm hopeful it will be, we'll try to bring that to other campuses, college campuses, or support other youth organizations to host those types of tables at other events. And so we are working with San Fernando Valley Young Democrats and Pierce College to discuss those efforts, as well as the ACLU and Amnesty International have put out a campus toolkit for students learning how to protect their First Amendment rights. The third area of focus is protests and rallies. We actively participate in local and citywide protests and rallies. In the past, we were proud to partner with Southern Christian Leadership Conference and Pastor Eddie to host an event down in Leimert Park for the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. That was back in 2021. That somehow feels like 20 years ago instead of 4 years ago. And we've participated in marches in solidarity with local unions. So most recently, we marched in solidarity with the unions for the downtown May Day event last week. And we participated in the downtown LA Hands Off event. And then we've had more local events like Tesla takedowns and rallies in support of Ukraine. So our next big event that Indivisible National is promoting is on June 14th. I'm sure many of you've heard Trump is planning to have a military parade in his honor on his birthday. And so we will be having a counter event called No King's Day to coincide with that military parade. And then our final area of focus is really strategic partnerships and collaborations. And so we just want to expand that. I think that there are many opportunities for us to do that. We have started, even within the indivisible groups here in Los Angeles, we just recently created the Indivisible SoCal Coalition. And so so that we can support each other's events and then find events that we want to collaborate on and support as a coalition. Again, the May Day event was the May Day event was actually our first event as a coalition that we showed up in solidarity with unions. So that's what we're all about. And like I said, we'd love to find ways to work together and collaborate strategically. And I will pass it over to Dusky to talk about her amazing Raising Cane's events.
Hi, okay, I'll just warn y'all, I talk fast. I'm gonna try to slow down a little bit so y'all can understand what I'm saying and not just talk fast. I'm really excited and passionate about what's been happening with the Raising Cane's movement. So as part of the outreach, and God bless Empowerment Congress and Vincent Harris there for the idea, and we just been going gangbusters since March 22nd, when the idea popped in Vincent's head while I was sitting on the curb at a protest at the federal building listening to Sidney Kamlager Dove and Maxine Waters speak, and I had 2 bad knees and a broken toe and was sitting there with my cane, and we were texting back and forth, and he came up with the name Raising Cane's as a way to engage seniors who are really frustrated and angry and upset, and concerned about, potential cuts to Social Security and Medicaid, and he thought that would be a great idea to engage seniors. And me being me, I don't go head first feet. I just like jump in, okay, and because I'm passionate when I do stuff. It's not as organized as what Kayla's presentation was, because that's kind of not where my head is. I'm an accountant, but not your typical one, so I'm not that organized. But because of the necessity and the need that was so great and still is with this looming budget reconciliation thing coming up, this month, we felt the need to just jump in there head first with seniors and some rallies and get them educated and just kind of threw everything together. I mean, and I'm just looking at some numbers that I wrote down because I'm an accountant. That's what I do. So March 22nd was when the name Raising Cane's and the idea came about. And now it's been a little over 6 weeks since this whole idea was conceived. We got an action plan 9 days later, God bless you, Vincent, which I plagiarized the heck out of, and kind of customized it a little bit for the certain valley area where we're starting off with. We held our very first rally on April 17th, which was 3.5 weeks later, which actually we had our city council member Constantine Anthony, was the former mayor there, speak, and another North Hollywood neighborhood council member Jillian Burgos, who's a really amazing activist out there in the community, speak. And we had about 43 seniors, mostly seniors, show up. Accidentally, and a photo reporter from ABC happened to be getting coffee across the street and came by, and another indivisible group loaned us their retired, of course, a videographer who did some amazing videos between the photos and the videos, and we've got some really great media coverage, if you will, from that. Nobody picked up on it yet, but I'm not giving up. We had that was the first rally. A week later, and this was just organized in just a couple of days, because the day after our first rally, Indivisible National said, "Oh, guess what? We're going to visit all the Social Security offices on the 24th, and you're going to deliver this letter, blah blah blah." So then we had another 3 or 4 days to organize. And on that day, on April 24th, we had a rally at the Chatsworth Social Security Center. We had about 37, 38 people come simultaneously. And we had Councilman Brad Sherman, who spoke there. Simultaneously, we organized a Raising Cane's rally in West Side, Los Angeles, at that Social Security area there, with West Side LA Indivisible. And clear across the country in Nashville, Tennessee, yes, between 11 and 14 people showed up in the pouring rain at the Social Security office there to do their very first Raising Cane's event with the canes and walkers and wheelchairs and caregivers and whomever. And my daughter lives there, and she hooked me up with the indivisible folks there. So that was just as of the 24th. And then day after tomorrow, we have another one across the country in Cambridge, Maryland. They're doing their first Raising Cane's events. It was supposed to be last week, but somebody got sick anyway. The organizer got sick. And of course, they live in Jamie Raskin's district. Okay, my friends at actually the gal that runs Cambridge Indivisible started Northridge Indivisible, and then last September retired and moved there and immediately started an Indivisible group there. So nationwide, in like 6 weeks, we've had 5 rallies. The next thing that we're planning are more office visits. We have a letter writing campaign that we've already got 35 people signed up, writing letters to our 3 electeds, our 2 senators, and then whichever congressperson is in their district. We have letters. I put a whole packet together in just a couple of days with letters and copies of letters and some extra flyers and what to say and instructions and a little handout on things about Social Security, a little bit of educational kind of stuff. So we have 35 people working on that and coordinating now some of those people who are dying to get out there and do something to now start visiting offices of our electeds and hand deliver some of those letters and follow up every 2-3 weeks to say, what are you doing on this issue? What about this? And okay, you didn't do anything on that. What about this? And let them know that on a regular basis. And let me tell you something, these seniors are and it's seniors right now, but of course it'll be intergenerational. We'll expand to that. But these seniors, they want to get out there and do stuff. I mean, it's like every other morning I'm getting emails. What else is going on this week? Is there another rally? Is there another visit? So they're pumped up to do this because it affects them so deeply. And we've got now, about 12 to 15 other groups, indivisible groups that we've already gotten information to. And they're working on putting their events together for our Lakewood, Alta Pasadena, Glendale, even 2 Orange County districts. One of the 2 that Vincent, you'd asked me contact information about, and they're ready to do those events as well. So the goal is nationwide, of course, but the first goal is to, we got to stop this budget thing. Then I'm sure there's a special word for it, but whatever it is, to me, it's a thing. And I'm an accountant, I should know better, but want to stop that so that we have those extra couple of months to work on, because there are some amendments pending, Democratic amendments pending, that we might have time to get to work on those between now and July. Elizabeth Warren has a website she started called the Social Security War Room. So I've connected our folks, our letter writer participants, into her website there that has a lot of resources and information. And then I put a plan together. I emailed out Sunday night about grassroots lobbying and the budget process and from what I could glean. And I'm definitely no expert, even though I've been an activist since I was 18 and I'm like almost 60 years past that. But anyway, so it's education, it's getting folks connected, it's getting them out there and feeling like they're accomplishing something that doesn't just benefit them. But I mean, a couple of them brought their grandkids and say, they're going to see this, and we're hoping, like I said, we've had quite a few younger people out as well. So we don't want anybody to think it's only for us older folks, okay? And after I have my knees replaced, I won't be walking with a cane, but I still will be carrying it because that's how I roll, because it's taped to both sides of the cane. One side it says, Raising Cane's to protect Social Security. My son-in-law even created this great logo that we're using. And the other side of the cane says, and Medicare and Medicaid, protect those too. So, I mean, this is what we do. It seems a little haphazard, but we're working on now organizing each of the indivisible groups to have their own kind of person that directs their letter writers and that, so that I don't have to do it all. But anyway, am I like talking too fast? Did you kind of get the majority of what I was?
No, we got it. Thank you very much, Dusky. Let me ask, are there any questions of either Dusky or Kayla that you want to pose? I do have one for Kayla, and that is, if there were individuals who were part of the Empowerment Congress, if they wanted to affiliate with an indivisible group in the Los Angeles area, or if they wanted to start one that was focused in South Los Angeles, how would they go about doing so?
So if you go to Indivisible National's website, I think it's just indivisible.org, you should be able to, there's an option to find a group near me. And so you could search there to see if there's, what the closest group to you is, if there's not one that's close enough. It's very decentralized, so anyone can start an indivisible group, and then that website kind of would provide all the steps on how to kind of register it or have it on their website so other people can find you, and how to promote events and that sort of thing.
Right.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I did have one more thing that was very important, because I got that phone call this morning. But we've also, Northridge Indivisible has also started a speaker series, and we've had ACLU come speak. Churla is coming to speak, I think this month. But I made a phone call to 2 different people. One was to Holman United Methodist Church. There's a Reverend Victor Curtis Franklin, I believe is his name, that has done some amazing work in the community between the church and the community and homelessness and housing. And so I thought that would be great, since we do a lot of work on the homeless issue as well, that he'd be a great speaker. And then I did get a call back today, with hopefully a call back in the next couple of days, from the Office of the Civil and Human Rights Office in Los Angeles, from the Executive Director's Office. And Capri Maddox, I think is her name, from her office, and we're hoping to organize a speaker as part of the series on reparations. And I think that's going to be a really great event. And of course, we invite all the different indivisible groups and put that out there as well. So that's all part of our. And then we have other voting rights issues, racism and race relations, immigration, several other topics in there that we'll be doing once a month. So something else to look forward to.
So we have some anti-racism organizing that's going on in Northridge, huh?
Yes, sirree. That's right.
All right.
Canes and all.
Outstanding. Are there any additional questions from the Government Reform and Accountability Working Group?
I have
So,
one, Vincent.
yes.
This is Arna. My question would be, have you guys gotten any pushback yet from Raising Cane, the retail outlet, based on your name?
Not yet. We're
No,
waiting.
And the thing is, and here's this where Jed, who's in Invisible West LA, he's a techie geek person, and he brought that up. Well, first of all, that Raising Cane's has an apostrophe. Of course, when you're online, it doesn't matter because it doesn't like apostrophes, but ours is without the apostrophe. The writing is a little bit different, but he did find out that if we wanted a website, et cetera, that raisingcanes.org is owned by the same person that owns the Raising Canes chains at raisingcanes.com, but he's not using that website. And so I have the name and contact information. Whenever we get ready, we'll ask him if he wouldn't mind letting us borrow it. And who knows, maybe we'll talk him into donating some chicken. My grandson thinks it's the best chicken on the planet, but no, so far nothing, and we're prepared for that.
We'll ask for forgiveness instead of permission.
But we're prepared for
There it is.
pushback.
All right. Thank you, Arna. Any other questions? Okay. Well, we'll proceed then to the other items on our agenda. But before we do so, I just did want to mention that I think Dusky has done an outstanding job in organizing these efforts. There are some other folks that are in the environment that are contemplating doing actions at the Social Security office on Crenshaw. One of those groups is called Protect Our Seniors, and we are aware that they have been in touch with at least one of the pastors in our group to try to solicit support from within the pastoral community. We also understand that they are conducting outreach to labor unions to be supportive. So there is work that is going on in the South LA community around this, not necessarily initiated by the Empowerment Congress, but I hope that we will feel encouraged by the activity of Northridge Indivisible and their efforts to address the issues associated with the senior community. I also want to commend them for linking the effort to preserve Social Security and Medicare to Medicaid, because of the three programs, Medicaid is the most vulnerable, with an $800 billion over 10-year target of reduction that is in the Republican budget resolution. And so that's a pretty substantial piece of change related to healthcare delivery. A disproportionate number of beneficiaries are African Americans and other people of color, not only in Los Angeles and California, but also across the country. So efforts to advance support for, or I should say defense of Medicaid and support for full funding is an effort to advance equity in the distribution of vital human resources. All right. So in the few minutes that we have left, I know that we've departed from our usual.
Vincent, I'm sorry, this is Arna. I have one more question.
Yes.
I think as we move forward in that conversation that you just were mentioning regarding Medicaid, Medi-Cal, and the Social Security system, those three different pots, I think we need to make sure we educate folks around those three different things, because I know a lot of people confuse them. And a lot of people don't really understand what Medi-Cal is versus Medicaid versus Social Security, versus, how all that works. So as we do our work and we move forward, I think some definitions might be in order, so people really understand what you mean when you say they're cutting Medicaid, which affects the entire country, versus Medi-Cal, which is California based.
Excellent point. Thank you.
All right. Kayla has dropped her contact information in the chat, and we appreciate that. Is there a website or a Facebook page for Northridge Indivisible?
The website is TRN Indivisible. We used to be the Resistance Northridge Indivisible the first time Trump was elected. Okay, then Joe Biden came in, so we dropped it, but it's still trnindivisible.org is the website.
Indivisible.
TRN for the Resistance Northridge, and then Indivisible is the website.
Great.
.org, right.
All right.
And we're on Blue Sky, and I don't have that information right in front of me. It's probably the same thing. The Resistance Northridge Indivisible.
Excellent.
Perfect.
All right. As I was saying, we've departed from our typical meeting, but I thought that the information that was being provided was particularly important for our effort. Pastor Eddie has already indicated that there are two Measure G listening sessions. One is going on concurrent with this meeting, and the second is scheduled for this coming Thursday. I believe Courtney has placed in the chat the link to that listening session. If there is interest on the part of folks on this Zoom meeting to participate in that, we want to encourage you to not only take notes, but to also participate, to express what you would like to see happen. And we've already had a couple of suggestions made. One, of course, is the preservation of the ARDI office, and making that a principal focus of attention as they move forward in the reform effort. Is there a way to protect that and make it secure or immune from the kind of erosion of support for diversity, equity, and inclusion that we have seen occur at the federal level over the past 100 days or so. The second thing I wanted to mention is we will be dropping some information in the chat related to the past 100 days that people may find of interest, particularly in this group. One of the items is a link to a website that has created a database associated with the actions of the Trump administration that are particularly racist. That's not the right one. That's actually the a video that is based on that. It's about 12 or 13 minutes. I know we're close to our 7:30 stop time. By a show of hands, is anyone interested in seeing that video? Okay. Kenny, anybody else? Well, it's in the chat. So if you guys make a copy of it, and is that you, Gwendolyn? Did you say
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
you would?
Yes.
Okay. Well, if folks feel like they need to leave,
I'd like
then
to see it, Vincent. This is Arna.
okay. Then Courtney,
too.
can you post the show the YouTube the first 100 days, but it's just racism video? While she's doing that, the Tracking Racism database from Contraband Camp is listed in the chat.
Donald Trump's second first 100 days in office have been a whirlwind. He's signed executive orders. He's held chaotic press conferences. He's defied court orders and even made at least one car ad.
Everything's computer.
I'm calling it now. The word of the year will be unprecedented.
Unprecedented. Unprecedented.
Unprecedented. Unprecedented.
But in this video, I don't want to focus on the random stuff. I want to focus on patterns. A specific pattern that comes with a label that has been following Donald Trump for decades. Racist.
Are you a racist?
I don't know, but for years, people have been calling Donald Trump one. From a New York City housing discrimination lawsuit in the 70s to rumors of frequent N-word use on the set of The Apprentice, he's given his critics plenty to debate over. But whether or not Trump is a bigot on a personal level is irrelevant to me. I'm not here to psychoanalyze him. I don't care what's in his heart or what's on his mind. What I care about is what's on the record. Policy, action, power. So in this video, I want to look at exactly that, the documented, captured, explicit, and implicit acts of bigotry during Trump's first 100 days. The independent media organization Contraband Camp did an incredible job of putting together a list of some of the questionable, if not outright racist actions taken by this administration since they took office on January 20, 2025. I was inspired to make this video because of their report, so you can find a link to it down in the description. But in order to effectively track the Trump administration's bigoted actions, they also put together a simple three-part methodology. First, their report focuses on the impact of his policies. That is, the effects that they will have on specific communities. Second, they chronicled the policies that were designed to reverse protections against discrimination, what they're calling reverse racism. And third, they used the Merriam-Webster definitions of the words discrimination and racism as a grounding for how they defined what was and wasn't racist from this administration. I think their report is spot on. So without further ado, this is Trump's first 100 days, Racism Edition. Let's dig in. Today's video is sponsored by Ground News. More on that later. Day number 1. Just hours after Trump's inauguration, Elon Musk performs what looks like a Nazi salute behind the official seal of the President of the United States of America. 6 million Jewish people were exterminated at the command of people who did this exact same salute. And yet, the ADL makes an excuse for Musk. That same day, Trump signs a host of executive orders, like Executive Order 14151, which terminates all DEI-related programs in the federal government, or Executive Order 14160, which seeks to end birthright citizenship for people born in America. He also signs Executive Order 14164, which calls the death penalty an essential tool. On that exact same day, he rescinds a ton of orders, like Executive Order 13985, titled Advancing Racial Equity and Support for Underserved Communities. He rescinds Executive Order 14031, titled Advancing Equity, Justice, and Opportunity for Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. He also rescinds Executive Order 14069, which promotes pay equity and transparency. Day 2, January 21st, 2025. Trump continues his attack on DEI, calling diversity, equity, and inclusion illegal discrimination without evidence. I made an entire video about this topic, so consider watching that one next. Day 3. Trump's Department of Justice halts all investigations into police misconduct and freezes all pending civil rights cases. It's important to note that almost every time the DOJ has investigated police departments across the country, they found rampant, verifiable examples of racist practices that almost always impact Black people specifically. And to freeze all pending civil rights cases means that they believe that there is either no discrimination in this country, or they simply do not care to bring justice for those who have been discriminated against. Day 7, Trump signs Executive Order 14185, titled Restoring America's Fighting Force. It ends DEI in the U.S. military and announces plans to target people who promote what the Trump administration calls gender ideology. Day 11, Trump blames an airline collision in D.C. on DEI, blaming Barack Obama and insinuating that mentally disabled people were somehow responsible as well. On the same day, Trump signs Executive Order 14190, titled Ending Radical Indoctrination in K-12 Schooling, which threatens to strip funding from K-12 schools that teach, quote, radical ideology. According to Contraband Camp, the curators of this list, the policy is cut and pasted from suspected white nationalist Christopher Rufo's definition of critical race theory. Under this rule, teaching about slavery, civil rights, and Jim Crow could be deemed illegal. Day 18. Trump signs an executive order to eradicate anti-Christian bias. It's pulled straight from Project 2025, and while it isn't explicitly about race, it narrowly defines Christianity within anti-trans and ostensibly anti-liberation terms. Day 19, February 7th, 2025. Though clearly not an official act of the Trump administration, his rhetoric and policies are already having an effect on his supporters. A group of white terrorists show up in Lincoln Heights, Ohio, to intimidate a historically Black community. But Black people don't really play that, so they took the flags of the white nationalists, they burned them, and they drove those cowards into hiding. In fact, Black parents in this community have been exercising their Second Amendment rights and patrolling their streets with their guns to protect their kids ever since. Day 22. February 10th, 2025. Trump's Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, makes good on Trump's promise to restore the names of bigots back to U.S. military bases. Fort Liberty's name is changed back to Fort Bragg, originally named after a Confederate traitor and enslaver, General Braxton Bragg. But the insane thing is that instead of standing on business, standing on their decision, they do this cowardly sidestep thing and found a random white man with the last name Bragg to maintain their plausible deniability. So to say that they aren't honoring the Confederacy, but we know what you are. We see what you're doing. Day 32. First, Trump purges the military of woke leadership. He fires 3 people that day: a Black man, CQ Brown, and 2 white women. And he replaces all of them with lesser qualified white men. Next, Trump officially stops tracking police misconduct, ordering a national database be shut down. The history, policy, and practice of policing in America mean that police are more likely to brutalize, profile, and kill non-white Americans. We know this because of, you guessed it, tracking databases like the one he shut down. Day 40. Trump signs Executive Order 14224, designating English as the official language of the federal government, which is fine. I don't, sure. But he goes a step further, not just designating English as the official language. He also rescinds previous guidance to provide access to services for persons with limited English proficiency. This is racist and stupid and downright mean to someone's grandma who speaks English as her second language. Day 45, Trump signs Executive Order 14230, the first of several executive orders targeting law firms that were hired by his political enemies. What he's doing is illegal, but he justifies it by saying that the DEI policies at these firms are illegal. It's important to note that Black people make up about 5% of all lawyers in America, 5. White people, on the other hand, make up about 81% of all lawyers in America. But again, he cites a diversity fellowship at one particular law firm as the reason he is targeting them. And just a few weeks later, he would do the same thing to universities, stripping Harvard University of billions of dollars in federal funding for research and scholarships, which makes this the perfect time to talk about today's sponsor, Ground News. Ground News is a website and app that gathers related news.
We're going to scroll through that commercial break. And so while Courtney is doing that, I'm going to be dropping a few more links into the chat, including information about the Empowerment Congress, and just want to encourage you all to go on our website to receive updates and to sign up for the Juneteenth celebration.
That the Trump administration froze $2.2 from 2 totally different sources. Take, for example, the fact that the Trump administration froze $2.2 billion in grants to Harvard after the university refused to comply with its laundry list of demands. This story has been covered by more than 400 sources, with left-leaning outlets covering this just a bit more than right-leaning sources. You can also see the factuality and ownership information. For this story, 9% of the reporting outlets are independently owned. I enjoy using this site to compare headlines across outlets to see how they're framing these stories. On the right, most of the headlines frame the story as simply as possible. Trump freezes billions for elite Harvard University. Meanwhile, on the center and left, some of the headlines are a little bit more descriptive, like this one from the Journal that says Harvard University hit with $2.2 billion funding freeze after rejecting Trump's demand. There is, of course, the blind spot feed, which covers stories underreported by one side of the political spectrum, whereas this particular story was almost impossible to miss. I think Ground News is awesome because they aren't trying to change your opinion about the news. They're simply trying to give you more information. Authorities arrest a Ground News for sponsoring this video. Okay, back to the video. Day 47, Mahmoud Khalil is arrested. Federal immigration authorities arrest a Palestinian activist who led some of Columbia University's student protests against the U.S.'s involvement in Israel's war with Hamas. Of note, Khalil has not been charged with a crime and was arrested for exercising his First Amendment rights. He is a political prisoner by definition, currently detained in a facility in Louisiana. Day 51 through 54, immigration officials arrest and deport Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Just like Mahmoud Khalil, Abrego Garcia has not been convicted in a court of law, has not been charged with a crime, and has been denied due process based on the Trump administration's unsubstantiated claims that he is a member of a gang. To make matters worse, the Trump administration admitted that they made an administrative error in deporting Abrego Garcia, but then completely flipped their stance, deciding instead to defy multiple court orders to bring him back to the United States of America. Day 52, March 13th, 2025. Trump uses the term Palestinian as a slur or insult against Senator Chuck Schumer. In the same interview, he calls Senator Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas.
Pocahontas was very happy. She's the one that was slapped. That's why I looked at her and said, oh, it's Pocahontas.
It's hard to put into words the horrors that we've witnessed every day during our time here. Entire families coming to the emergency department, injured, killed. Stories of a father walking around barefoot, desperately looking for his now dead children. of a mother who gave birth only 7 days ago who cannot find her newborn baby or her 9-year-old child, later to find out that both are trapped under the rubble and dead. Of a 14-year-old boy whose entire family has been killed, who's now receiving extensive surgery for his wounds, wishing that he himself was killed too. Or of our colleague who this morning, a nursing colleague from the operating room who this morning was killed and we weren't able to resuscitate him. These are just some of the horrors that we witnessed during our time here. People here are desperate for safety, shelter, food. Please do everything in your power to help those who so desperately need your help here in Gaza.
A term that is seen as a slur for Native Americans. Day 53, March 14th, 2025. Trump guts the Minority Business Development Agency. Now, as some of you know, I spent a ton of time with Black Republicans last year, and several of them told me that they were excited for Trump because of his business mind, that he promised through the Platinum Plan to invest in minority-owned businesses specifically for Black people. Given Trump's attack on diversity and race-conscious policies, that seems unlikely now. Day 57. The Department of Defense continues a purge of Black history, getting rid of the bio for Jackie Robinson, among others. The erasure of Black history has been a central issue for Trump and his allies. And Contraband Camp reports that no white people were deleted in this DOD purge. Day 63. The Atlantic reveals that Pete Hegseth accidentally added their editor-in-chief to their War Plans Signal group chat. This wasn't racist. It was just one of the dumbest mistakes in American history, and we should never forget that it happened. Day 66. Speaking of history, Trump signs Executive Order 14253, titled Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History. Among other things, the order seems to suggest that the official position of the Trump administration is that race is a biological reality, which is definitional racism. It is old school eugenics era racism and insane to me. For the record, race is a social construct, and the way we understand each other as racialized beings is a relatively new phenomenon in world history. Day 70. The Pentagon bans DEI books. They purged 381 books from the Naval Academy Library. And a significant number of these books are from Black authors, including Ibram Kendi, Emmanuel Acho, and Kimberly Jones. Day 84. Trump tells the president of El Salvador that he wants to deport, quote, homegrown U.S. citizens to foreign prisons. Given the ways that the U.S. legal system is stacked against non-white people, the outcomes of this illegal plan would no doubt have devastating impacts on Black and Hispanic communities specifically. Day 88. Donald Trump posts a photoshopped image of Kilmar Abrego Garcia's knuckle tattoos, claiming that it was proof that he is a member of the MS-13 gang. Not only does the image appear to be doctored, none of the 4 symbols on his knuckles in the photo, which were a marijuana symbol, a smiley face, a cross, and a skull, none of these symbols appear in any law enforcement database referencing the MS-13 gang. Perhaps more importantly, again, Abrego Garcia has been denied access to due process in a court of law. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that the Trump administration claimed that they mistakenly deported this man because of an administrative error, and then just days later started this public smear campaign. And now they're like doubling and tripling down on it. What's abundantly clear to me is that they believe that this man, his reputation, his rights, and his freedom are all disposable tokens in their political game. And I think they believe they can get away with this because he and all the other people that they've disappeared are non-white and therefore expendable. Day 94, and this is important. Trump signs an executive order to eliminate the federal use of disparate impact across various areas of civil rights enforcement, instead pushing for color blindness. By the way, let me know down in the comments if I should make a specific video about this executive order and its relationship with color blindness more broadly. It feels like we probably need to have more conversations about the logical fallacy in all of this color blindness stuff. This executive order completely undermines the government's ability to identify and rectify potential unequal impacts on communities. Disparate impact is especially useful for its ability to help uncover unintended consequences of seemingly neutral policies. Said simply, Trump removed the government's ability to even know which communities are harmed by the things that he's doing. If you were operating in good faith and you wanted what's best for everyone, wouldn't you want to know about the unintended, unintentional, harmful impacts of the things that you were doing? Well, now one of the tools used to determine exactly that is gone. At the time of this recording, there are still a few days left in Trump's first 100 days. I don't know or care if Donald Trump is a racist, but I think his actions have proven that he is completely okay with utilizing racism to stir up his base, to seize power, and to make a clear distinction between who is in and who is out. Okay, I think I'm going to call it there. I'd love to know what you all think down in the comments. Please like.
All right. So what'd you guys think?
Vincent, that is phenomenal, and it needs to be broadcast all over the world.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that. That brought a lot of things close to home. I shared in the chat with the Empowerment Congress West Area Neighborhood Council. They're having a firefighter a tour on this Saturday, May 10th. They're suffering racial terror right now. They're trying to erase our American hero, Jim Gilliam. He was an American baseball player for the LA Dodgers back in 1953, and they're taking his name off of that park. So if y'all can go and support him and show him some love, that'll be definitely appreciated. Peace and blessings, family.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Are there any additional announcements before we call this meeting to adjourn? I've placed some information in the chat. I'm aware of at least 3 events or 3 activities that are coming up in addition to the listening session this coming Thursday. On May the 17th, I see that Sandy Hamilton has put something in the chat. It's May the 13th. Actually, there are 2 things, one on May the 13th and then one on May the 17th. May the 13th, there's a proclamation by Supervisor Mitchell about Black Elders Appreciation Day. On May the 17th, there's a Black Elders Bill of Rights community celebration and call to action at the Compton Housing Authority. On May the 10th, there is an indivisible unit that's called Indivisible Central LA, which also goes by the name Democracy in Action. They're planning a rally on May the 10th. I think that's in West Hollywood. And then on May the 19th, Malcolm X's birthday will be celebrated as its centennial observance. Were Malcolm X alive, he would be 100 years old this coming May 19th. So that's what I have in the way of announcements. Does anyone have any others?
Vince, I didn't have an announcement, but I had a question.
Yes, sir.
Pastor Eddie mentioned that the 5 members of the task force for Measure G were already appointed.
That's correct.
Do we know who the 2nd district appointee was or is?
Yeah, we do. I don't have the name, and or at least I don't remember the name, but it is available. I can make sure that it gets out to folks. He is someone that is known. Derek Steele. Thank you very much, Courtney.
Okay.
Courtney is on it.
All right.
And Pastor Eddie has conducted outreach to him already, and we anticipate in a future meeting inviting him to come and share his perspective on things and permit us to share ours as well.
Yeah, that was going to be my next suggestion.
Yeah.
You have him come. Okay.
The other thing I'll mention is that based on the feedback that I have heard, there appears to be an interest in us doing future educational presentations on both the differences or the distinctions in the programs like Medicare and Medicaid, and presumably in the Social Security realm, supplemental social income versus OASDI and survivors, I'm sorry, disability program programs within Social Security. And then there's probably also an interest in us doing something specifically on ARDI, the anti-racism, diversity and inclusion effort in the CEO's office. It's nearing the end of the fiscal year, so I know that they are preparing their annual update. And so it might be worth our while to spend a little bit of time reviewing what conclusions they have reached this year, particularly in comparison with where they landed last year on the equity tip, particularly in light of the fire circumstance and its impact on the African American community in the unincorporated portion of the county known as Altadena. Did I miss anything? Were there any other matters that may be of particular interest beyond what we've already discussed? I think there's probably a desire to do an update on the budget as well as we get more information. Anything? All right. Does anybody have any additional announcements? With that, then I will conclude the meeting. Thank you all very much for attending. We know that you have lots of opportunities to do other things. We decided to do something a little different in this meeting than we have in prior meetings, but we thought the information was pressing enough and interesting enough that it would sustain your attention and be worth your while. We hope we were right. All right. Thank you, guys. Take care.